So, we are going to have a look at some of the new SUPES who might make an appearance in the final season of The Boys or in its spin-off series and sequels, and without wasting any time, let's start with Jimmy the One. So, Jimmy the One is the leader of the minor league superhero group Team Titanic. Jimmy the One is also the boyfriend of the Starlight, also a member of the same team. His power set is not shown in the comics. He is first seen in a meeting with Vought American executives James Stillwell and Jess Bradley at their start tower when the team is attacked by the Frenchman and the female. In the ensuing skirmish, the Starlight starts attacking aimlessly with blasts of energy until Jimmy the One points her arms at the Frenchman, severing his arm but accidentally decapitating fellow teammate Country Mama in the process. In a bid to prevent further harm, Stillwell calls for a ceasefire, and from that point onwards, Jimmy the One is not seen again. Oh Father is first seen at Capes for Christ, praying with his helpers, then lighting a cigar, and Homelander shows up telling him to do something about his addiction to his young sidekicks. Oh, Father is surprised by his appearance and the two are talking about different things. While watching Starlight's speech, Homelander makes an offer to Oh Father to help him take over the world. Oh Father is surprised by this and seems reluctant about it, but then agrees. He then shows up with the other heroes when Homelander kills a family and discusses with them a plan to conquer the world. On the day of the attack, Oh Father and his team of adult sidekicks await Homelander. The journalist then appears and asks Oh Father if it is true that he is using his young sidekicks for some other things. The angry Oh Father hits him, knocking out 4 of his teeth. Then, Oh Father and other heroes defend Homelander when he attacks the White House. When the Air Forces come in, he tells other superheroes to calm down and start attacking. However, he is quickly murdered by the military who started firing rockets. Next, 5-0. Like the rest of the G-Men, 5-0 was kidnapped sometime in the past by John Godolkin as a child before being injected with Compound V, which in turn gave him his superpowers. As part of his training in the G-Men, he was brainwashed by Godolkin to be nothing more than his personal lapdog. As such was the case with all of Godolkin's victims. Wearing a helmet on his head and sporting a wardrobe fit for motorcycle rides, 5-0 is an emotionless, slightly rude SUPE. He doesn't seem to hold many ordinary people or even other G-men in high regard, John Godolkin especially, often criticizing Godolkin for his narcissistic pretensions and nonsensical speeches. His only real friend seemed to be Coldsnap, with whom he seems to have formed some sort of a friendship. As the name suggests, 5-0 has cop-like tendencies, mostly modeling his costume and codename after motorcycle high patrol officers. He rides a motorcycle and wears a helmet as he pretends to keep the world in order. 5-0 openly states that money is what drives him, not justice. Like most of the white G-Men members, he is also extremely racist towards blacks. So, like 5-0, Coldsnap was among the first unfortunate individuals abducted by cult leader John Godolkin during his childhood. He became just one of the numerous victims enticed to Godolkin's mansion with the promise of forming his self-proclaimed superhero teams. After being exposed to Compound V serum, he acquired superhuman abilities and eventually became a member of Godolkin's main team known as G-Men, but was later reassigned to lead G-Force. Next, Scandia is a minor character in the comic book series The Boys. She is a Slavic or Germanic SUPE and a member of the Children of Stormfront. As the other members of the so-called Children of Stormfront, Scandia was the spitting image of a mythical Viking warrior. However, in truth, and just like the rest of the team, she was not related to Stormfront at all. Instead, she and other Slavic or Germanic SUPES had simply been grouped together by Vought, likely for marketing purposes. Her only appearance was with the rest of her group attempted to ambush Billy Butcher. Following her leader Vikor's request, she was supposed to read his mind after the other members attacked him, but the female was able to incapacitate the whole team by herself. Scandia survived the attack, but had to be hospitalized due to open fractures on both of her legs. Just like her, Vikor, the leader of the so-called Children of Stormfront, was the spitting image of a mythical Viking warrior. However, just like the rest of his team, he was not related to Stormfront at all. During his war on SUPES, Butcher first encountered Vikor after he procured images of him masturbating with a device known as the Eternity Gauntlet. From that point on, Vikor was forced to act as an informant for the boys. Butcher later met Vikor at his wife Norska's funeral, with the heroine having allegedly died in battle. After giving an impassioned speech about his dead spouse, Vikor would be caught having sex with a female fan at the back of the funeral parlor. To send a message, Butcher headbutted the confused Vikor before throwing him into a cremation oven right next to the ashen remains of his dead wife. Vikor was horrifically burned, but survived thanks to his superhuman constitution. Butcher then demanded that Vikor act as an informant for him, or he would release the damning images that he possessed of him. Vikor eventually managed to regenerate most of his face, though his left eye never fully healed. He later attempted to ambush Butcher alongside the children of Stormfront, but his teammates were brutally defeated by the boys. Vikor would survive the battle, however, and having been left with no way out, continued to act as an informant for him, particularly for gathering intel on Stormfront. It was later implied that Butcher killed him when he was no longer of use, having lured him into a park under the false pretense of a secret meeting. However, his death was never shown, and therefore couldn't be confirmed, though it is implied that the female may have killed him. Next is Black Fog. His codename and persona are rooted in negative stereotypes associated with black males, likely a deliberate choice by Vought American to resonate with the Scorchers fanbase. In a recorded business meeting, he expressed discomfort to Vought American executives regarding the racial stereotyping demanded for his public image enhancement. Black Fog later meets his end by the hands of Butcher alongside his fellow teammates when they consume tampered food that renders them unconscious. The boys' show loves using characters like him to show real-life stereotypes, and he has a lot of chances to appear in the boys' show or any other spin-off series. So, Professor Banzai was a supe who was killed by Homelander. In my opinion, he is a very cool-looking super, and he should be definitely used in the boys' show, even if it's for a single episode. In comics, Professor Banzai was rampaging through a town goading Homelander to fight him, with the police unable to stop him. Then Homelander appears and instantly kills Banzai by ramming into him at high speed. However, his death was covered up by stating he killed himself by self-destructing. Professor Banzai might be capable of making himself explode. In the cover-up of his death, he is stated to have killed himself by self-detonation. His name also uses the word Banzai, a word that kamikaze shouted before they exploded themselves in the Second World War, further implying his explosive powers. Blarney Cock is an Irish-born supe and the bastard child of Queen Maeve and the Legend. He was raised in an Irish orphanage through the offices of Vought. When his powers manifested, he was then recruited, shipped to the US, and rose up the ranks to teenage kicks alongside his fellow super whack job. When the boys yet again used embarrassing information to undermine Vought via their aggregated knowledge of superhero sex lives, they targeted teenage kicks. In Blarney's case, he had been caught stealing drugs while visiting a children's hospital. Later, having found out it was the boys that put the team in a humiliating position, Blarney and the rest of the group tracked them down, seeking violent revenge. The boys engaged in a brutal street fight with teenage kicks, and while fighting Blarney Cock, Wee Huey panicked and punched out his viscera, unaware at that time of the potential of his Compound V enhanced strength. After receiving a public and highly televised funeral, Blarney was then the fortunate recipient of a revivification in an attempt to show that supes were virtually invincible. However, the revivification process turned Blarney into a retard, according to his old teammates, causing him to mumble incoherently and constantly urinate himself. In his zombified state, Blarney sought out the hamster that was in his rectum at the time of his death, which brought him into conflict with its new owner, Wee Huey, who promptly killed him again. Huey then burned Blarney's corpse to both cover his tracks and ensure that he would stay dead. The legend would later reveal that he despised Blarney and believed that Huey had done him a favor by killing him. Pus-Puss was a member of G-Force. She was among the unfortunate individuals abducted by John Godolkin during her childhood. After being exposed to Compound V serum, she acquired superhuman abilities and eventually became a member of one of Godolkin's teams known as G-Force. Pus-Puss is primarily associated with G Mansion, where she cares for the resurrected Nubia alongside Luckless. During Silver Kincaid's funeral, Pus-Puss expresses shock and dismay at the prospect of having to care for yet another potentially reanimated teammate. Pus-Puss exhibits feline traits, including a fur-coated physique, a visible tail, and retractable claws. In certain scenes depicted in the comics, she presents a more human-like facial appearance, suggesting a capacity to assume transitional forms spanning the spectrum between human and feline. Although the full extent of her abilities remains uncharted, it is possible that she possesses additional feline-related powers or sub-powers. Later, Pus-Puss, along with her teammates, meets her demise when Vought American deems Godolkin and the G-Teams a public relations liability and dispatches heavily armed Red River operatives to attack their mansion. We have already seen Dognott in The Boys show, and it's possible that he might make an appearance in the next season. In comics, Dognott is one of the many people who had been exposed to Compound V as kids and developed superpowers as a consequence. Still a teenager, he joined the superhero team Teenage Kicks. As a public figure, he appeared as a hero. In his private life, he could not care less about doing something good with his powers. He indulged in all sorts of vices, from drug abuse to massive orgies with his teammates. Someone had taken pictures of the Teenage Kicks in intimate moments, documenting their illegal and sick perversions, and threatened to make everything public if one of them did not admit in front of the world their private shame. Dognott managed to keep his vices secret. A shout-out was voted by everyone to be outed as gay. A secret informer then revealed the identity of the blackmailer to the Teenage Kicks, the boys. Knowing the identity of his attackers, Dognott followed his team on the streets to confront the boys openly. Dognott himself had Mother's Milk as an adversary and was quickly knocked down after being thrown at whack job, losing several teeth when hitting the floor. His last appearance was in fellow teammate Blarney Cock's funeral. Moving on, we have Jack from Jupiter. So, Vought American presents Jack from Jupiter as an alien hero to the world, but he's simply an enhanced human created by Vought. Like the Seven's other members, Jack possesses enhanced strength and durability, but he also has invulnerability brought on by saying the magic word Carpo. Despite his status as a long-time member of the world's most successful super team, his lack of the star appeal and major powers means he is seen as fairly unimportant to his corporate sponsors. Later, Butcher's dog Terror is found dead, and it is assumed by the boys that Jack killed him. All the boys are sad and angry after Terror's death, but Butcher is the first one to take action. Butcher searches for Jack and tracks Jack to a back room, shoves him against a wall, holds his throat closed, and repeatedly stabs him in the stomach while questioning, "Why'd you kill me, dog, Jack?" He prevented Jack from saying anything by choking him so that he won't be able to activate his invulnerability, and as a result, Jack is killed by Butcher in a very painful manner. Malchemical has the power to alter his body's molecular structure in a variety of ways. He can do anything from classic shapeshifting to turning himself into a cloud of poison gas. Originally a member of the superhero group Team Titanic, he was ejected from the group for shapeshifting into its leader to try and have sex with his girlfriend. As punishment, Malchemical is assigned to lead the lower level team Super Duper, whose young members have largely ineffectual powers. Upon his arrival, Malchemical discovers his new teammates have intellectual disabilities and decides to make their lives hell. After a disastrous attempt to rescue an old woman's cat, Auntie Sis asks Malchemical what got him placed in Super Duper. She figures that the higher-ups in Vought are doing this as a punishment for something. As it turns out, Malchemical's been demoted from Team Titanic due to some disgusting escapades he got into with his former leader's girlfriend. Later, when Auntie Sis takes the team out for ice cream, Huey is forced to break his surveillance when Black Hole chokes on his food and requires an emergency tracheotomy. The rest of the kids are so grateful that Huey saved Black Hole that they declare him to be their new friend, and this only makes Huey seem more suspicious to Butcher. On the other hand, at every opportunity, Malchemical uses his powers to harass and threaten the Super Duper members by mocking their disabilities. After Auntie Sis reports Malchemical to Vought for being rude and abusive to their teammates, he decides to get revenge. Malchemical uses his shape-shifting powers to trigger Auntie Sis's claustrophobia and nearly smothers her to death. When the rest of Super Duper discovers what he's doing, Malchemical declares that he's gonna have fun with the girls and force the boys to join in under threat of death. Huey breaks his surveillance and tries to stop Malchemical, but is, of course, no match for Malchemical's powers. Huey gets severely beaten until Butcher, who'd been tailing Huey to assess his reactions, finally steps in and rather anticlimactically kills Malchemical by setting him on fire while he is in a gaseous state. Unfortunately, Butcher almost murders the obviously traumatized Super Duper kids as well, when Clanker's Tourette's syndrome goes off at the worst possible moment, angering Butcher. Huey has to beg and plead with Butcher to stop him from hurting any of the kids, saying that they're harmless. Butcher doesn't kill them, but thinks it's only a matter of time before they become as bad as Malchemical. Butcher walks off carrying Huey away and leaving Super Duper with Malchemical's smoldering corpse. To put it plainly, Malchemical was a monster. He has an incredibly powerful ability and does not hesitate to use it to assert his dominance. The absolute terror that Malchemical strikes into Super Duper is inexcusable. Malchemical feels no such need to keep up his public image. He's not as famous as Homelander, and the news is not constantly discussing him. Therefore, he's free to do whatever he wants to. Sure, he's on probation from Vought when he joins the Super Duper team, but that doesn't stop him from continuing to antagonize them even when he's reported by one of his teammates. In short, Malchemical doesn't feel the need to restrain himself the way Homelander does, and thus bullies and terrorizes whoever he wants without much fear of reprisal. So, it seems that Malchemical can show up in the Boys show at any point, given that we got to see his name in the season 4 of Boys. It was also shown that he is leading the team Super Duper in the show as well, so it is very much possible that just like in the comics, the boys might encounter him during one of their missions, and he might end up dead sooner than other characters, just like he did in the comics. In the show, incorporating his hate of Super Duper would just be especially mean-spirited and controversial for no reason, considering there's not a ton else to his storyline in comics. While his shape-shifting powers would be cool to see on screen, Malchemical would surely need quite a few changes made to his despicable character to justify the inclusion. So, yeah, that's all for the video and thanks for watching.